For today's Meta Monday episode, I go over another rogue build. Anti-meta, Demonlords with a pet dragon. Creepymon has been finding its way into more decks along with Avenged Kidmon. And if you enjoy these types of videos, do consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell for more of my future content. This version of the deck that I propose can be extremely aggressive in one turn, or you can keep it more defensive and go for the deck out strategy. Because of this, I felt the need to not build a second variation of the deck. Instead, I'll talk about the differences of an aggro strategy and a control strategy with this profile. But before that, let's go over the card by card, the strengths, and the weaknesses. This deck runs 5 level 2s, 13 level 3s, 11 level 4s, 9 level 5s, 6 level 6s, 2 level 7s, 5 option cards, and 4 tamers. For level 2s, this deck runs 4 copies of Demonlords and 1 copy of Sunomon. For this build, sometimes you may not necessarily be able to swing into security. Rather, your opponent might be able to remove your Digimon via effects like Blackwaregreymon or DP reduction. Because of this, I prioritize this over Sunomon. And as mentioned in previous purple videos, I don't like any of the other purple babies for the fact that I don't get to control what goes to the trash. For level 3s, this deck runs 4 BT2 Gabumon, 2 BT2 Sukaimon, 2 Gazimon, 1 BT6 Impmon, 2 BT6 Elecmon, and 2 starter deck Gabumon. BT2 Gabumon and starter deck Gabumon help with drawing your combo pieces, and believe me, there are a lot of ways to win with this deck. But for your other level 3s, you run 2 Sukaimon for the memory return when your Digimon is deleted, 2 Elecmon for the potential deletion to remove the memory blockers that prevent your combos from going off, Impmon for cycling, and Gazimon for memory blocking of your own. Not a whole lot of room to substitute because, like always, deck space is really tight. In playtesting, Sukaimon is significantly better at 4 if you're looking at longer games and control, while starter deck Gabumon helps with the aggro variants to fill your trash and cycle through as much of your deck as possible. Because of this, you may swap the starter deck 6 Gabumons for all Sukaimon, or vice versa. In playtesting games with Tomo from the Do Work group, Sukaimon does quite a bit of work himself, especially once it's in the trash. For level 4s, this deck runs 11 in the form of 2 Ginkakumon Promote, 4 Eismon Scatter Mode, 1 Eismon, and 4 copies of the new security Digimon, Witchmon. Ginkakumon Promote can be the finisher for the deck, especially if you manage to pull off the insane combo. With the Eismon package, Eismon is your MVP of the deck that lets you draw 3 and trash 2 on its deletion. Many decks have DP reduction effects that almost always guarantee the deletion of this Digimon. But in a lot of cases, this guy still has quote-unquote jamming as a joke that he never dies when you need him to. Eismon for the free body on board, and the Witchmons that can grab back any level 5 or lower purple Digimon when it's played. Witchmon adds extension plays, especially if you Omnimon ward it back. For substitutes, you could run the Ginkakumon and Kinkakumon package for extra memory gain with a promote. But I love Witchmon. It definitely helps with the DNA in a Chimeramon, especially with the amount of cycling you do with this deck. For level 5s, this deck runs 9 in the form of 3 Cerberusmon, 4 Cerberusmon Werewolf mode, and 2 Chimeramon. Cerberusmon for not only an additional dig, but the start of some insane combo plays. Cerberusmon Werewolf mode is to facilitate cheeky checks with its rush and also the 9 memory gain. And Chimeramon for ridding yourself of specific Digimon and DNA Digivolving for the extra attacker and potentially the start of your massive plays, which I'll go over in the combos. For level 6s, this deck runs 2 Lilithmon, 1 Megidramon, and 3 Creepymon. Creepymon is the primary boss monster for your insane memory combos, and in addition can end games against specific matchups in the format. Lilithmon for memory looping, and a 1-tech copy of Megidramon to really stick it to your opponents if they're digging a lot. This is where a lot of variation can be with your top end, as you could also run Junomon. But personally speaking, this deck was designed to specifically deck out the Rapidmon Hybrid and Mastemon matchups. Purple has a wide variety of tools for you to use, and it's up to you to find what's best for your style. Anubismon is another option for more cheeky rush plays, or even BT6 Titamon for a body revival. For level 7s, this deck runs 2 copies of Omnimon Zwart for cycling your Cerberusmons and potentially allowing you to pop them for extra bodies. Or even simply going into 2 promotes for additional swings, or the lethal swing for gain. For option cards, this deck runs 2 Jackraids, 1 Calling from the Darkness, and 2 Deathclaw. Jackraid is a purple staple at this point, but unfortunately like all decks, the space is tight, and as a result I am unable to bring Jackraid up to 3 or 4. If anything, if you think Megidramon isn't your type of card, you can easily drop this from your level 6 lineup to get a 3rd Jackraid into the deck. Calling from the Darkness helps facilitate some of your combos and extenders, and 2 Deathclaws for those pesky level 4 or lower Digimon if they happen to hit it in the security. For substitutions, you may consider running all Jackraids instead of Deathclaws, but personally I find the need for it, especially when your opponent builds too wide and you can't keep up. Finally, Tamers in the form of 1 Matt Ishida and 3 Analog Youth. The ratio has become a standard in purple builds, and while I did playtest with 2 Matt Ishida, I was also mistaken in believing you could grab a Matt with a Matt in the Black Wargreymon matchup. Because if they delete Matt, you just lose your memory fixer. But, all in all, reading is hard. Matt helps keep you at a stable 3 memory, but normally you'll be able to make your plays even with 1. Analog Youth is great to help build that trash, but keep in mind you'll want to be more careful how often you trash because in the mirror, it can be deadly. For strengths and weaknesses, this deck has the strengths of bringing a lot of bodies on board. Additionally, the best matchups against this deck are typically the Mirror Match, Mastemon, and Yellow Rapidmon Hybrid. Against Mastemon, your opponent is also drawing and trashing cards in their deck. Yellow Rapidmon also recovers and lays out multiple security, sometimes up to 10. Because of this, as they draw, search, and recover, they are also potential victims of the alternate win condition of Deck Out. Suzanomon is their only way out, but sometimes such an answer lives in the security. As for weaknesses, aggro decks like Imperialdramon can out-aggro you. If they find their memory fixer early, you're on a time clock. Likewise, Black Wargreymon is arguably this deck's worst matchup. Metal Greymon de-digivolves your Digimon and blows up the level 3 to prevent you from gaining memory or drawing and trashing cards. And Black Wargreymon can target your Tamers and or Digimon up to Cerberusmon. Also keep in mind Black Wargreymon's effect is on all turns, meaning if you delete anything on your board, he can restand himself as a potential blocker. Once you know the matchups, plan accordingly to lay out your bodies and have them ready to crash into security or hold back. For combos, this deck has a wide variety of combos for setup, but for the best combo, you'll need to fulfill a few conditions. You'll need 2 level 5s on board, one of which is Cerberusmon. Keep in mind if you have Cerberusmon on board and 2 level 4s with a Chimeramon in hand, you can also achieve the same board state. You'll also need a Cerberusmon Werewolf mode in the trash as well, and your opponent needs at minimum 2 bodies, if not 3, on board. We'll start with the 2 level 4s and Cerberusmon on board. Witchmons surprisingly come up in my security a lot, and sometimes 2 back to back. Because of this, I can DNA Digivolve them together to make Chimeramon. Afterwards, I go into Creepymon, mill 4 cards and bring back the Werewolf mode from the trash because Creepymon doesn't have any explicit limitations, only level 5s as long as my opponent has 2 Digimon. Afterwards, Werewolf mode hits and deletes Cerberusmon, and gains you 9 memory. And you also draw 2 and trash 1. So let's just trash another Werewolf mode. Assuming you had 3 memory to start with, because of Memory Tamer Matt Ishida or your opponent was foolish enough to give you 3 to start with, you now have 9 memory to play with. Now, if you're going to mill, you could swing with your Creepymon. Or, you could Digivolve an Omnimon Zwart to bring back Cerberusmon from the trash and any other level 5 or lower Digimon that doesn't cost more than 8. Swing with your Cerberusmon Werewolf mode. Assuming it doesn't die, you can Digivolve it into another Creepymon for 3 memory, and repeat the process again. Key cards I like to hold onto in my hand until I am ready are Genkakumon Promote and Aizmon. Finding the guy is the hard part now that he's limited to 1, but he comes in clutch. What are your thoughts on anti-meta Demonlord and a pet dragon? With the meta popular with certain decks, do you want to try winning through alternative methods? Personally, I feel seeing a stack of 10 or 12 security just makes me want to pick up my cards off the table instead of suffering through a best of 1 game. Let me know your thoughts on this build. This is Digi-Panda, logging out.